Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in to another episode of Cap and Trade. I am your host, Texans Cap. You can follow me on X at Texans Cap. Make sure you subscribe to the newsletter, capandtrade.football. Got a little bit to talk about tonight. We obviously, hopefully, everybody got to watch the preseason game today against the New York Giants. It was a very fun game to watch, especially if you're a Texans fan. It was good to see the ones out there in full force, or about 90% of the ones are out there. Laremy Tunsil didn't play tonight, but it was fun to watch. It was good. I mean, it looked like a full-scale dress rehearsal type of situation. The running game wasn't quite there like we had hoped, but C.J. Stroud looked precise, looked on point, looks ready to go for the regular season. He was spreading the ball around to everybody. I don't know if there's anybody who didn't get a reception on that first drive, to be honest with you. So it was a very good night, a very good day. I'm sorry, it's nighttime now, but a very good day for the team. It was fun for the fan base. Hopefully you were able to get out there to the stadium. Looked like it was a good time. I myself wasn't able to make it out today. Had some family activities going on this morning, but we'll try to do what I can. But yeah, so if you got any questions, comments, throw them up on the board. We'll kind of get to them throughout the show. Main thing, just wanted to kind of go through a 53-man roster projection, or 69-man is how I like to call it, because 16 players on the practice squad with the ability to elevate players through, each week, up to 2 players plus the emergency quarterback. I kind of view it as more of a 69-man roster, and if you listen to Nick Caserio and the team talk, that's kind of how they view it as well. So definitely wanted to kind of play with that tonight, and got a couple of thoughts on the preseason game. I still need to wait till the tape comes out and we can take a really, hard look at everything. But, overall, I mean, obviously, if you've been following me on X or anything like that, I was excited to see Kenyon Green again. I did a newsletter on him after the Hall of Fame game. And I was really looking forward to watching him tonight, because this New York Giants front seven is probably going to be one of the best front four in the league. And it was going to be a great matchup, a great first test for this offensive line. Laremy Tunsil wasn't playing, but Blake Fisher was in at left tackle. Kenyon Green was at left guard. Juice Scruggs at center. Shaq Mason at right guard. And Titus Howard back at his old familiar spot, which we finally get to see. Finally get to see the big man over at right tackle, where he's meant to be, and he hasn't been there probably in 2 years, and it was great to see him there. But this, with Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, and Brian Burns, this is just a stout front four to go against. And I really wanted to see Kenyon Green. I kind of just wanted to see the whole group work together, but Dexter Lawrence had some explosive plays, but Kenyon Green, Dexter Lawrence put Shaq Mason back in C.J. Stroud's lap in that low red zone on 3rd and goal. But Juice Scruggs and Kenyon Green really held their own up against Dexter Lawrence, and I was happy to see that. They worked a lot of combo blocking with him. There was a couple of sets where Kenyon Green went straight up with Dex Lawrence and really was able to drop his anchor, plant, and really hold up Lawrence. And on the edge, I was excited to see Titus Howard took on Kayvon Thibodeau and did very well. He held his own out there, one-on-one situations, and it was just good to see from this offensive line. This is the first time. God, we really, as fans, we didn't get to see a true full power offensive line all of 2023. Players were hurt left and right, and players were out of position, and it was a constant shuffle of the offensive line. So I was excited to see the offensive line that we've been waiting on now for a year plus now. So, Laremy Tunsil, I'm not concerned at all about him. He can take off all the preseason for all I care. It was good to see Blake Fisher get some reps out there at left tackle, because he's going to be your offensive tackle 3. But it was good to see the offensive line, and And Brandon, his point is spot on. Mechie had a day, and I love it. I've been just waiting and waiting and waiting for the Mechie situation to pop out. I see him at camp. I see him at practice. He has moments. I mean, he has a drop here and there at camp, but who doesn't? But, I mean, he was making plays in camp. He's been making plays in camp. And it's there. It's just waiting. And today was the day. It would be fun to see him with the ones, but I mean, obviously you have a very crowded wide receiver room, but Mechie just showed up today full of energy, got his first touchdown in a very long time. It was great. Chancellor from KPRC2 posted a video where you see the whole wide receiver room and CJ Stroud come out onto the field to celebrate John Mechie and his touchdown. Even Joe Mixon in street clothes is right there on the sideline with him. But this whole group is just behind him. And there's been a lot of questions of whether or not he would make this roster. I think, and I hope, today solidifies his roster spot and just takes away any questions that were there. So I'm excited about all of that. I'm excited about Jawar Jordan and what he did. I'm very disappointed for Dameon Pierce. And we'll get all this into the 53-man building, but it's rough. And it almost, and I think Seth Payne put it very well today when a post he had on X, that he said, paraphrasing, I can't remember word for word, but it almost looks like Pierce is waiting on the perfect running lane to develop for him. And that's just not how it's going to work in this system. You have to anticipate the lanes coming open, 1 foot, put down, and go. And I talked about it all last year. You see Pierce shuffling his feet and having some indecision. And that went on in the last preseason game. There's a lot in the Pittsburgh game. There was a lot of shuffling, waiting to make his cut. And by the time he was ready to make his cut, the lane was already gone. It had developed for him, and then it was gone. So I hate to see that for him. I am very concerned about his roster spot. We'll kind of get into that in a little bit. But Cam Akers showed a little more life, a little more burst out of there. I really liked what I saw from Jawar Jordan. You know, he had a good couple of pass blocking reps. Good out of the backfield catching the ball, and obviously he came out of a zone heavy scheme in college. So excited to see him. But I appreciate everybody coming through. Travis, good to see you, bud. Jeff, what's up? My compadre Larry's here as always. So if you got any questions, throw them up. I'll try to get to them when I can. I don't want to divert from what I'm talking about, but we'll try to get to as much as we can. I feel like Mechie's a better pure receiver. Yeah, I feel like they're obviously two different receivers. Hutch is more of a straight line, top, break the top off kind of wide receiver kind of thing. And Mechie's more of an underneath route technician. It's not going to have that breakaway speed. And then British Book's looking fit for this offense so we can get around. Yeah, definitely. He's one of my biggest practice squad guys. So, and he's a big dude. It was funny. John Harris would even mention maybe you turn him into a fullback. I mean, he's a big dude, but he moves well. So, on the defensive side, Stingley's the man. Year 3 is going to be the Stingley year. I think all the talk about Stingley versus Sauce is going to get put to bed. Stingley he looks so smooth and it looks so easy when he's out there and he's almost anticipating a route, running their wide receivers route for them. And it just looks beautiful. And Kamari Lasher on the other side didn't have any targets as far as I saw. I need to go back and look at the numbers, but I didn't see any targets towards Lassiter's side. So I was really surprised to see Daniel Jones try to pick on Stingley with Neighbors, who looks like a fantastic wide receiver. But it looks like Stingley and Lassiter are going to stay on their side of the field, which is great. I'm all for that, especially when you have two good cornerbacks like that. And then the back end, you're going to see a heavy rotation. We saw that today. When they're in base package, three linebackers on the field. Then Petrie is in back at safety with Jimmy Ward. When Toto comes off the field as the Sam, and they drop to two linebackers, Petrie sliding down to the star or nickel, whatever you want to call it in this offense, and then another safety's coming on the field. Last week, it was Eric Murray who would come on, but today it was Kalen Bullock coming on the field first. So I don't know if that's a change that we're going to see towards the regular season or if that was more of a test today. But it was interesting to see Kalen Bullock come on the field first. So it's an interesting rotation. I thought Desmond King kind of was going to be a primary nickel, but it looks like he's going to be supplanted by Jalen Petrie. And I don't know that he's going to be like utilized as like a pure coverage nickel cornerback in the simplest form. I feel like he's going to be more like a free range rover. I mean, a star player, a star position player. He's just going to kind of be everywhere. They'll use him as another linebacker, use him on the line of scrimmage, use him in blitz formations. I mean, I think that's how Dave Aranda used him at Baylor. He was on the line of scrimmage, he was in the box, and that's where I think he thrives. And we saw that today. The pick six, easy pick six for Petrie. That was all Derek Barnett. That was a lot of pressure from Derek Barnett, who's going to be a fantastic rotational defensive end for this team. But, man, I feel bad for Giants fans to be stuck with Daniel Jones. I really do. I mean, it's tough. So, yeah. So that part of the defense was fun to see. Jimmy Ward was spry and out there. The linebacker depth is now become my biggest concern. We'll talk about a little more about why when we go into the 53-man roster or 69-man roster projection build out, but I am a little concerned about linebacker depth, more so than cornerback depth. And then the front line, I mean, they didn't really see a whole lot. I don't think D'Amico had a whole lot of exotic looks or anything, didn't really run too many stunts today. It was a good day for Khalil Davis on the second string defensive tackle group. Didn't really see a whole lot beyond Derek Barnett having some pressures. Didn't really see a whole lot from the front seven today, which is fine. I'm not too terribly concerned about that group, but there's a lot to be happy about with the defense. There's just some depth concerns and a few spots on the board. But overall, I mean, it was a fun day for fans. That the energy roof, man, they gotta do something about that. That sunshine spot is just wreaking havoc on the camera. I can't imagine the lower bowl people in the south end zone just getting hammered with that sun throughout the day. But hey, I'm sure Kyle and them will figure it out. Let's see what's over here. I hate to advocate for Pierce getting cut, but I'm not seeing anything at all from here. Yeah, Travis, I'm with you. I sent it in the group chat with some friends that, and I did post on X that if this team goes with four running backs plus a fullback, I don't see Pierce as part of that group. We'll get into the details on that. Jake says, my biggest concern is health. Petrie weren't up for availability. Backup CTs. Yeah. I mean, health is always an issue with almost any player, so we're just kind of have to wait and see. What do you think about Max Tooley? He's young. He's got fantastic hair. My goodness. He's got fantastic hair. He's got a great mullet. He's very raw. I think Max Tooley, definitely going to get him back on practice squad. I think that's definitely a practice squad guy you can start to develop, kind of take the Jake Hansen route and start working your way up year 2, year 3, try to work into that linebacker group. Yep. MBZ. Yeah, I'm with you, bud. Still unsettled CB position. No, I think that's pretty lined out. I think the more the depth is the unsettled part, and we don't know what Jeff Okuda's health situation looks like. We'll just have to wait and see. Yeah, well, I don't know about Shaq Leonard, but Deion Jones maybe. Zach Cunningham, I'd be down for Zach. I'd be down for that. So but we'll look at it. We'll look at it. So let's just dive into it, man. Let me see if this will work the way I had tested it out to work. All right. So we'll kind of just uncover different parts of the group here. You can already see the counts that are up here. And so we'll just kind of go position group by position group. Let me scan this in just a little bit so I can see the comments. All right, there we go. So if you got any questions along the way, throw them up. We'll get to them as we can. So quarterback, I got two guys. No big surprises. Davis Mills and CJ Stroud. Now, if you're asking why 2 and not 3, I think the reason that I'm going this path is they changed the emergency quarterback rules this year, right? After that fiasco last year with San Francisco and a couple other teams. Now the team has the ability to elevate a quarterback from the practice squad each week as a quarterback and not count towards the 2 standard elevations. So essentially, you can have a third quarterback every single week, but that player is not taking spot on the 53-man roster. So that's my whole thinking in there. And so I have Case over here in the practice squad, and he has a $1 million guaranteed salary this year. On the practice squad, it's like, was it like 389,400, something like that. It's a very small amount compared to what he was scheduled to make. He was scheduled to make, I think, 2.75 plus some 250 in roster bonus. He's already guaranteed $1 million. Maybe you float him another 250 or 500 as a signing bonus right before you release him, and then you get him back on practice squad, and then that basically he's paid a decent amount for the year, and then he can just be elevated each week. Because I don't think the team can get Davis Mills through waivers. I just don't think that's possible. And so you don't want to expose him to that and then lose him. So, and I think you just try to work out a contractual agreement with Case, pay some money up front for him, because now you can't do what you used to be able to do in 2019 and prior. You used to be able to overpay practice squad players, and teams would pay up to the minimum salary of an active roster player for a player on practice squad. You can't do that anymore. You just got the limit is set. There's a maximum amount that you can pay a veteran. So that's why I think you can try to pay him up front some money on top of his $1 million guaranteed salary and kind of get close to what he's going to make for the year. And then that way you can keep him out there. So that's kind of my thinking on the quarterback room. Running back. This includes fullback. So I have 5 here. Joe Mixon, Cam Akers, Dare Gobawale, Jawar Jordan, Andrew Beck. This assumes Andrew Beck is healthy enough to make it back come week 1. I know you're saying there's a name missing, and there is. I've been a Dameon Pierce, like hopeful, wishful, optimistic, hopeful, optimistic, everything in between. I think the show's over. I think the ride's over. I think he just needs somewhere else to go a completely different system, a team, and I don't think the culture or the team or anything like has the problem. I think it's just the system, and he worked his ass off this offseason. He truly did. I've heard him talk at the podium. I've heard him talk in interviews. The dude worked his ass off, and he just it's just not processing right for him, and that happens, and that's okay. It's not for him, and hopefully another team is out there that's willing to take him in, bring him into their system. Something maybe it's more of a gap power scheme. Maybe it's something that fits his eye. I just feel like he can succeed somewhere. It's just not going to be here. But he can succeed somewhere and be a quality RB2, find some spot opportunities to start. But I think there's a spot for him on a roster elsewhere, just not here. And I hate it. I hate it, man, because the dude is such a genuine, authentic, honest person, and I want him to succeed. So that's kind of my thinking on the running back room. Cam Akers has shown a lot. He can be the RB2. Dari's going to be your RB3 in the passing downs. He's a good blocker, and he can kick if he needed to. But and Dari can play special teams, not just kicking, but he actually is a contributor on special teams, and that's why his spot on this roster is kind of solidified, not just from his pass blocking ability or third down running back ability, but his special teams ability. He's very good. He's a good open field tackler, and he's very good at punt coverage. So that's another reason why I think he is on this roster. And then Jawar Jordan, I don't really like the idea of exposing him to waivers. He might make it through, but he showed me a lot today, and I think he probably would be inactive most weeks because I don't think he plays special teams. So he'll probably be inactive most weeks, but I really like him being here. For the practice squad, I like British Brooks getting over here, and then J.J. Taylor if he can get him back. He's got some good work in this system. I think he would be a good depth on the practice squad if somebody were to go down. Akers, Jordan, Wale, somebody. I think J.J. Taylor would be a good slot in behind them. So hopefully we can get him back on practice squad like they had him last year. All right, so let's move over to wide receiver. So, you're probably noticing a name that's missing here, and I'll explain it in a minute. But you got your top three, clearly. Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs. That's easily your top three. And John Mechie, who showed a lot today. Robert Woods, who has shown quite a bit during this preseason and training camp. Enough to where I am not concerned about aging out or anything like that. He's fantastic depth for these top three players. If somebody were to get hurt, which is not out of the realm of possibility. And then Hutch making it on here is 6. The player that you're probably asking about is Noah Brown. And I have him on reserve. And this is nothing to do with inside news. This is just me speculating. This is me reading tea leaves, looking at the team. He could very well show up at camp practice on Tuesday and completely just nullify this whole thing. So I think Noah Brown is one of your IR return players. Missed 4 games. And then he can come up, and if somebody's hurt, then he can take over that spot. If not, then I think Xavier Hutchinson is the man out. Now, if Noah Brown is healthy between now and the start of the season, or between now and the 53-man roster cutdowns, then I'm taking Hutch out and putting Noah Brown in, and then try to get Hutch back on practice squad. He might not make through waivers though, but this wide receiver group is a pretty solid group. So that's kind of my thinking. And no, it's not, the order's not like, I don't think Mechie's ahead of Woods and Hutchinson. It's more so just I have them listed. I didn't like say that this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So don't read into that. This is more so just the grouping. That's kind of my thinking. Now, like I said, this is just speculation on my part with Noah Brown. Maybe he's healthy. If he's healthy, then Robert Woods could be out, or it could be Hutchinson could be out. This 2 spots plus Noah Brown is going to be something to just have to keep an eye on these next 2 weeks to see what happens. I don't know if Woods has any trade value. If he does, it's a very late day 3 pick. Maybe a team calls you about him, and you treat it kind of like the Mark Ingram situation where you go to Woods and say, hey, look, this team is looking to trade for you. Is this a team you're interested in going and playing for? He may say, no, I don't want to go there. Then, you can release him, move on, give him his free open market, and go sign somewhere else. That's kind of how I think the team would approach Robert Woods. I don't know that they would be able to call out and start finding value for him. I think it would have to be a team calling for him. But he's definitely good veteran leadership, good depth, and that's what this team needs, because it's not unheard of that Nico Collins, Tank Dell could get hurt, or Diggs for that matter. So could be that one's probably one of the biggest. That's probably the toughest group to choose from on the offensive side of the ball. Definitely will say that. All right, let's go over to. Got to refill my drink. Let's go over to tight end. This one's pretty straightforward. This is not difficult. Schultz, Jordan, Cade Stover. I don't think they're going to run with 4. And part of that reason is I just don't trust the health of Tegan Toriano. I think he's going to be an IR candidate. And I'm just... he's got talent. He shows talent, but he just can't stay healthy. Didn't stay healthy last year. He's already hurt again this offseason. So I don't know if this is a situation where you want to try to make him available as a injured reserve return guy, or move on, injury settlement, give him a shot elsewhere. I don't know. We just have to kind of wait and see. But I just don't see him having value, making this roster. And then I think over here, and I forgot about practice squad. Cephas, practice squad wide receiver. But for the tight end group, I got Dalton Keene coming back to practice squad for the tight end group. And then Tegan over here at reserve. So pretty straightforward. Schultz, Jordan, Stover. Not big questions there. But that's pretty much how I view those positions groups. The offensive line is pretty straightforward. 9 players, that's pretty common. Most teams will run 9 players on their 53 with 8 on game day. It's pretty clear how this was going to shake out for the top 7 with your starting 5 and Blake Fisher as your swing tackle, Jarrett Patterson as your swing interior guy. Kendrick Green, I think, makes some sense as another swing interior guy. He can play both guard positions. We know Jarrett Patterson can play center and guard. And then Nick Broker would be the last tackle. This would probably be a situation where a Broker is inactive on game days, like I talked about when it said 8 active on game day out of 9. So pretty straightforward, nothing too crazy there. I do have Dieter Eisland, the guard, making it onto practice squad. I really didn't have too many other players. making it on the practice squad from there. So that's your offensive group, 25 players, pretty even. The biggest question marks will always be Dameon Pierce. Where does he shake in? And I don't have him on the practice squad unless just something weird happens. But Dameon Pierce not making the running back group, and then this Robert Woods, Xavier Hutchinson, and Noah Brown situation and how that plays out. If you're asking about some players from the offensive line group, I have Charlie Heck over here. I have Charlie Heck as not a practice squad guy. Outright release. He's injured right now. So either you put him on IR and injury settlement out the door. I don't view him as a player that they think is worth like carrying over on the 53 man, then put him on IR to make him eligible for a return. I just think the Charlie Heck experiment is over with and move on. Irving might make it a broker. Maybe so. I just haven't seen enough of Irving. Brokers. I mean, it's tough. Broker, but, I can see it wouldn't hurt my feelings. But I think Charlie Heck is going to go to reserve prior to, at the 53-man cut down and then injury settlement out. So that's kind of how I view him. So that's the offensive line group. So we'll jump over to the defensive line group now. I got 9 on the offensive line, or defensive line group. There's your starting 4. Will Anderson Jr., Daniil Hunter, Fatukasi, and Mario Edwards. Derek Barnett and Jerry Hughes will be your edge depth. Khalil Davis and Kurt Heinisch, interior guys. And Solomon Byrd, the inactive 9th player. I have, we know Danico Autry, 6-game suspension, so he's going to be on reserve. I have Tim Settle starting out the season on reserve. He's got I think he's dealing with a calf and just haven't seen him practice at all. This is another player that I don't have insight into whether or not what the injury nature is like. So he could return to practice this week, but for now, I'm putting him on the reserve. If he is able to be healthy by the time the 53-man roster comes around, then he takes the place of Kurt Heinisch. And then Kurt Heinisch could potentially be a practice squad acquisition. But for now, Kurt Heinisch slides in until Autry and or Settle is ready to come back. Autry, 6 games. Settle, minimum of 4 games. So that's kind of how I view that. I've got Ali Gay, the defensive end, making it over to practice squad again. Marcus Harris, this one's tricky. 6th-round pick. He's a little undersized. I think he's like 280, 285 defensive tackle. He blew up one run play today where he just got around the back shoulder reach of a guard, exploded for a big tackle for loss, and maybe he makes it through waivers. It's kind of questionable, and that one's kind of a tricky one, and I didn't know how the team is going to approach that one. If they can get him through waivers and get him onto practice squad, that'd be fantastic, because he's got the skill set to develop, to work on, to become a big contributor to this team. He's just not quite there yet, and that's kind of how I feel about it. And there, not a whole lot of claims happen through the 53-man. There's a few at the top of the board, but there's so many players released at once. Now that there's just one cut from 90 to 53 or 90 to 69 or 90 to 53, and then you re-sign your practice squad. So that's kind of my thinking of Marcus Harris. I don't maybe they slide him in over Heinisch. That very well could happen. But I think Heinisch's got a little more experience in this system, and Harris just needs a little time on the practice squad. And I also have Malik Fisher, another defensive lineman, making the practice squad. All right. Linebacker group, the one I have the biggest concern about, and you'll see why. I have Christian Harris starting on IR. This is another one of those. This is me reading the tea leaves. This is me kind of guessing, kind of not guessing, kind of wait to see. But he showed up at practice last weekend, or the first part of last week, and he's been dealing with a calf injury, and those can linger. And then made it about halfway through practice and had to exit, and we haven't seen him since. So I think the timing of that is, and the fact that injury can linger, I feel like that's a type of thing he needs to rest. And that's where you put all those factors together, and I feel like IR is probably the best path for him. And I think him and Noah Brown are going to be your two players that can go IR return that don't have to be carried on to the 53. We'll kind of touch on that. We might as well explain it now. So there's a new bylaw rule, that you can now put up to two players on IR during the cut down to 53, and they can be eligible to return. Prior to this rule, you had to carry players onto the 53, then put them on IR the following day to make them eligible. So you had to play this roster gymnastics game. John Weeks was always one of them, and he might be another time where he's a roster gymnastics guy, where you have to release one of your veterans, carry a player on the roster for a day, then put them on IR and re-sign the player back. It made no sense. So they've allowed now this year where you can do that with two players at the 53-man cut down. So, it doesn't really matter. It could be Settle, it could be Cotoriano, it could be Brown, it could be Harris, but there'll be two guys. It just depends on how the roster gymnastics shake out. But two guys can fall under that path, and then the other ones you got to carry on your 53-man. Then you can designate them to IR. The return from IR, NFI, PUP reserve does not count towards this number, but the max is 8 players again this year, 2 in the postseason, so 10 total if you're counting postseason. That's for NFI, which is non-football illness, non-football injury, practice squad return, practice squad injury return, because they used that last year on Brandon Hill, and active player, so from injured reserve back to 53. So those 3 categories count towards the 8 designations to be used in the regular season, plus 2 in the off season. You can only use twice on one player. So that's something you got to keep an eye on, because last year, if you remember, the team used up all 8 of their designations. Kaimi Fairbairn was the 8th designation. They used one on Brandon Hill from the practice squad. So I think it was like midway through the season, they were out of IR returns, and there was nothing they could do. So, it's just, they'll have to keep an eye on that and see how they manage it. But there's a lot of roster gymnastics, and see how they want to play it around with it, and figure out who's going to be in and out. But we'll get back to the linebacker group. So, Aziz will be your Mike. Toto is your Sam. Jake Hanson's probably going to be your Will to start with. And it scares me to know if Neville Hewitt or Jamal Hill are on the field for an extended period of time. Neville Hewitt, huge guy on special teams. That is your special teams ace, Neville Hewitt. Him and D'Angelo Ross and Dare. That's your special team ace. But you don't want him on the field all the time. So, and Jamal Hill, he's young, he's got a lot to learn, still kind of drifting into that linebacker type role from the safety that he used to play in college early on. So, that is my biggest concern, that group right there. Even with Christian Harris coming back, say in 4 games, that's still a group that Nick Caserio is probably going to be looking at in the open market. And we saw it 2 years ago when they traded for Blake Cashman for a 6th round, and that turned out fantastic. So hopefully they can maybe identify another player for a late day 3 pick, or somebody they can pick up off waivers, something like that. But that's kind of my concerns with the linebacker group. And Brandon, no, he's right here in the reserve at the bottom. So I have him starting on injured reserve for the first 4 games of the season. Yeah, that's a tough one, and I think Jamal Hill could easily be practice squad for sure, Jacob, especially if they find another player to bring in, whether it's a free agent, like we talked about earlier in the show, whether it's a free agent like Zach Cunningham or Deion Jones or another veteran, or a player that they're able to trade for a late day 3 pick, or a swap for players. Maybe they're swap Dameon Pierce for a player or something like that, or Robert Woods for a linebacker. But that's the biggest issue for me right now is this linebacker group. I know somebody asked about Max Tooley. Definitely have him making the practice squad. I think he'll get through waivers pretty easily, and I think that's a guy that you want to continue to develop and work on the practice squad. And I also have Jacob Phillips, who's another linebacker, making the practice squad from that group. So this one's probably going to be the biggest area for me for the team to be looking at on the open market to figure out where they can improve, where they can find another player. I had Delshon Phillips in there, and he could easily make it. It's a Jamal Hill. If you're worried about, because they have a 5th round pick invested in him, it's whether or not you think he can squeeze through waivers. Maybe you put Delshon Phillips in here over Jamal Hill. Maybe you only carry 5 cornerbacks and you go to a 6th linebacker. I'm certainly not opposed to it by any means. That just kind of speaks to the whole concern that I have with linebacker. It could be Jamal Hill. It could be Delshon Phillips. It could be TBA for that last spot. But, man, that's when you're talking about those players as your depth in your linebacker, that's a little bit of a concern. So that's my biggest concern going into the next 3 weeks is linebacker. All right, so cornerback, got 6 players making it. The one that I don't know about is Jeff Okudah. I don't know, I speculated on some of these other players going to reserve. I feel like Jeff Okudah is probably a little more likely to be ready to go for week 1. I don't have C.J. Henderson in here. I have him just a straight up release. I also have Miles Bryant down here as I forgot to put C.J. Henderson down here. So that's my 6, and that assumes Okudah is healthy. Now, this part, the back end, is difficult because Desmond King, dedicated nickel back and can do punt return. But we've been seeing Jalen Petrie slide down to the star position nickelback role and not allowing Desmond King to come on the field. D'Angelo Ross, special teams ace. They love him on special teams. That's why I think he makes this roster. Now, how this whole back end shakes out, maybe C.J. Henderson is a guy that they will keep on the roster, and they don't keep Chris Boyd. Chris Boyd's good on special teams as well. Special teams is very critical to this team. So this one's probably one that I have the least amount of confidence in and how this group shakes out. I have Miles Bryant as being released, and I was excited about him being signed to this team. So that's this one's like my biggest question marks. We don't know Okuda's health. We don't know C.J. Henderson and where he stands in comparison to Okuda. Desmond King was playing late in the game today. I don't even think I saw him till the third quarter. They've had off-field issues with him in the past. I don't know if Mike Ford is a name in here. It's just like linebacker, the depth at cornerback is a concern, because if Stingley or Lasher goes down, it's going to be tough. But Miles Bryant, I really like him as a good nickelback. Maybe he's in before King, but I think King and his punt return abilities is something that's probably going to give him an edge over Miles Bryant. Today, yeah. Morris, today, yeah. I mean, like I said, this is a tricky situation. I don't know if it's Boyd or Ford who's above who. It could be one or the other. I mean, really, it really could. It could be, I mean, almost coin toss it for me. So I like Chris Boyd a little bit more in coverage, but I like Ford. I mean, flip-flop that. I'm sorry. I like Ford a little bit more in coverage. I like Chris Boyd on special teams. And that's why I kind of give the edge to Chris Boyd. All right, safety. Got 5 players making it. That's a good comment, Travis. I like that. Between offensive line and cornerback, I don't know that there are that many teams that are just like, yeah, we're good with CB3 and CB4 on our roster. They could they could slide right in and be starting guys. That's a good one, man. I like that, because I'm going to put it back up. I mean, that's a good point. Maybe I'm just overanalyze it, and I mean it's okay to be critical of depth on a roster, but there's a lack of depth of offensive line and defensive backs across the league. So it only makes sense that it's going to affect your team and every other team. So that's a good point, Travis. I like that, man. Let's go back to safety. Got 5 here: Jimmy Ward, Petrie, Bullock, Murray, Stewart. Pretty straightforward. Like we talked about at the beginning for the game review part, Jimmy Ward and Petrie, you're starting 2 in base formation with 3 linebackers on the field. Today, Caleb Bullock came on the field first instead of Eric Murray. Don't know if that's just a today thing or if that's what's going to happen going forward. When the 2s are on the field, Caleb Bullock is playing deep center field in cover 3. And then whenever they're in with the 1s, and he's working that more interchangeable cover 2 system with a lot of pre and post snap variations. So maybe D'Amico is starting to get a little more confidence in Bullock. And then Murray and Stewart as your depths. MJ Stewart's very good on special teams as well. I did have Troy Pride out of the defensive back group and Brandon Hill out of the safety group as making the practice squad. I did have Lonnie Johnson as a release option and not coming back. We talked about Jamie and Pierce. I don't know why he's down this far. And we forgot to talk about Ben Skoranek. We'll get back to that. But safety group, this is who I have. And then to fill out the last 3 spots, it's more just TBA. I think there's still a need for an offensive lineman. There's still a need for a cornerback, and there's still a need for a wide receiver on this practice squad. If this were how it were to shake out, I say O-line because there's only one on here, which is Dieter Eisland. I say cornerback because there's only one in Troy Pride, and I say wide receiver because there's only one in Cephas. So that's where I think you start to look elsewhere. Ben Skoranek, that one was tough. They brought him in. There was a lot of talk, a lot of excitement about him. Big dude, could kind of maybe play some different positions, play a bit of a different role. Had a lot of experience in the system coming from Sean McVay's system. And I haven't seen enough between preseason games and training camp to say, yeah, I think he needs to be on this roster. I just haven't seen enough. Maybe he comes back as a practice squad player. Maybe he gets picked up elsewhere. And just nothing's really stood out enough for him to to be somebody that I think makes this roster. I think Okuda and King are good. Yeah. You don't want King playing on the outside, though. That's for sure. Stress, what's up, buddy? No chance they carve out a 7th spot for him that borrows from other positions like fullback or H-back. Yeah. I mean, maybe. I haven't seen Skoranek on special teams, so I don't know that it makes sense for that. Maybe because they did have Cade Stover as the fullback today because Andrew Beck wasn't healthy. If Andrew Beck is not healthy, I don't know if maybe it's a Troy Hairston joint or maybe Skoranek plays that kind of H-back type role and they work between him and the tight end and they carry 7 wide receivers and no fullback, no official fullback. Whack my microphone there. There's definitely some ways to skin that cat, and I'm not opposed to it. I just don't see him on the roster in this configuration. So this is my 53-man today, subject to change. Spent a little bit of time on it. There's a few, like we talked about, linebacker is the biggest concern from depth. Wide receiver depends on how it shakes out with Noah Brown and his health. Cornerback depends on Jeff Okuda and how his health is shaking out. And then deep into the defensive line, the defensive tackle group specifically, how it works out with Tim Settle. We know about Autry. We know about Christian Harris if he's going to make it back or not. But that's a lot of my question points at this point. Tony, you're late. I'm sorry, buddy. Yeah, go back and watch the replay. Make sure y'all hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to capandtrade.football. Do all that stuff. What's wrong with Christian Harris? Calf, from my understanding. What part of the calf or anything like that, I don't know. But from my understanding, it's a calf issue, and he's not doing well. Oh, special. You know what? Chandler, you're right, buddy. Thank you. As if we didn't know who was going to be special teams. Yeah, pretty straightforward. Fairbairn, Tommy Townsend, who likes to run his mouth, and we love it. and John Weeks. Harris has a question about Steven Sims. Yeah, I don't. Maybe he's back to practice squad again. Definitely, I said we were short one wide receiver, so you definitely could plop in Steven Sims here easily. There is a limit on the number of veterans that you can put on a practice squad. I think it's 6 players. Case would be one. Dalton Keene would be one. I think Troy Pride would be one, and I think Steven Sims would be one. So they're under the 6 at that point. Yeah, I mean, I maybe Sims is definitely a player you could try to get back on practice squad. I just don't know. I feel like he has an opportunity to make it elsewhere. I had him in here. What happened? What? No way. I had him here. Dylan Horton. Yeah. Yeah. He's been working on the side. I feel like they're going to put him on. He would be NFI reserve. I'm not sure that he makes it back this year. If he does, that's fantastic. You kind of just stash him on NFI reserve until you have an injury concern. And if you don't have an injury concern, then you just leave him there. Of course, he could, fight about the issue of being healthy, but I'm just not sure if he's healthy enough to make it there. That's why I have him there. Cephas is a better thing. Okay. Yeah, so that's another one. Good call there, Harris. Does Mac Tooley make the practice squad? He's right there, big man. Right there, Tony. As my wife would say, if it was a snake, it would have bit you. Jonathan says, great work. I agree with about 98% of the predictions. Linebackers issue. Do you see Nick Gordon as specific when the teams make cuts? I haven't gone out there and dug in and looked to see what names make sense. I just haven't. I'm sorry. We'll have to go back. We'll just have to kind of wait and see. There's going to be a glut of players released all at once, right? What is there? 90 minus 53 times 32. So there's over 1,100 players released in this last stem. In previous years it was go from 90 to 75 to 53, and then there was a year where we went from 90 to 80 to 53, and now it's just 90 to 53. And it is a absolute chaos show, and it is a horrific job for these teams to have to go cull through 1,100 players to try within 12 hours to make a decision of who they're gonna put a claim in or anything like that. Speaking of which, I got a new bulb up there, and I actually chose the H-Town Blue hex code as the color up there. So how about that? If you got any questions, throw them up. I got a few more drinks here before we call it a night. I didn't know how long this show would be, but we got some time. So, got any salary cap questions or anything like that, man? Hit me up. Let's see what we can do. Let's have some fun. Please cut forward. We need to find a trade partner for Pierce. He has potential but lacks vision. He would rather run through a 2-3. Yeah, I mean today the vision issue was on point. Was clearly on point, and like I said in the beginning, I think Seth pointed out well that he's just waiting for the lane to define itself to become a perfect lane to go for it. He's just lost confidence in his decision making. Last year, there was a lot of shuffling of the feet before he was taking 2, 3, 4 steps before making his cut up field. And you can't do that in this scheme. The hole will develop. You have to be able to foresee the lane developing, and then you have to be able to take that, plant your right foot if you're running to the right, or plant your left foot if you're running to the left, and go upfield fast as that lane is developing. What Pierce is doing is the lane is developing, then he sees it, then he's taking 1, 2, 3, sometimes 4 steps, then going upfield, and he's not using that hard, like, and I hate to compare him because it's impossible to compare anybody against Arian Foster, but putting that hard foot in and going upfield is what Arian was so good at. Pierce doesn't do that. And you put all those things together, and then we saw it again in the Pittsburgh game. I was looking at some tape, and it's, again, this time instead of 4 steps, it was 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going upfield. Dang, the lane is not there anymore, and I've lost it. And there was some blocking issues in the Pittsburgh game, definitely. Broker and Chris Reed did not do Pierce any favors in that game. But today there was, I think, the second run attempt for Pierce where he was following Stover was the fullback, and his decision to cut back inside made no sense to me. And I need to wait to see the end zone view of the all-22. But his decision making on the cutbacks is just not where it needs to be. And the team needs to allow him to go find a place that fits him. I think he can be a contributor somewhere in this league in the right scheme. I wish him well. He's a super dude. He's so awesome. He's genuine. He's authentic. He's everything in between. It's just not what we want. So I'm late. Why did it go up there? I'm late. What did you have as? Yeah, we went through that. It was Mixon, Akers, Ogunbowale, Jawar Jordan, Andrew Beck. Depending on Andrew Beck's health. From there, it just kind of depends. Did Mechie solidify a spot on this team in this game? Yes, he did. I think his spot was, like 80% solidified based on his work in camp, and the team loves him. And another part of the Mechie situation, and I don't think this is a reason to keep him versus not keeping him, but it's something that is interesting, is when Mechie's rookie contract is up, which he's got this year, next year, he is actually going to be a restricted free agent, not an unrestricted free agent. So the team will have a 5th year of control at a cost-controlled number of probably 3.5, 4.5 million, 4.5 million, something like that. They'll be able to put a original round tender on him. He was drafted in the 2nd round at a lower cost. Instead of having to put a 2nd round tender on him, they can put the original round tender, the original round that he was drafted in. So I'm not saying that's a reason to keep a player, but I'm saying that's an advantage of keeping the player. And his development continues, and I think that's important. Giants might be the worst team in the NFC East, even Washington better. The Giants are bad. And like I said in the beginning, I feel bad for Giants fans with Daniel Jones. That is just the worst contract. I don't know what they were thinking when they signed that contract. Makes no sense. They are locked in this year. They tried to trade up for a quarterback this year, according to Hard Knocks offseason. So I feel bad for them. But hey, as Houston fans, we've been in quarterback purgatory plenty of times ourselves. So no love lost there. What's the reasoning behind the Charlie Heck cut? He's been hurt. He was hurt a lot last year. He's been hurt this year. Can't stay healthy. I don't think that, he's not better than Blake Fisher. So, is he better than Broker? Maybe. But, I think that experiment's over with. You IR settlement, off you go. Unserious question. After someone came back to what's your opinion on the new unis? I love them. I got the new shirt on. I love them. I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see the alternate uniforms on TV. See them in person, obviously, but I think I love what they did for them. The black ones, like the I can't remember. It's not deep steel blue anymore. The dark blue, almost black, is a really good looking color. I think the uniforms are great. I really do. And I can't wait to see the alternate helmets with the H logo and then the candy red ones. Are gonna look pretty sweet. Any chance British Brooks makes it over Jawar? Maybe. I just don't see it. I like British Brooks. I really do. I think he's the practice squad guy. If you can get him on practice squad, which I think you can, I think he is that player that if Mixon is hurt, that you call up can be an effective short run. He moves well for a big dude, but I think he can be an effective 1 or 2 week, get you 60, 70, 80 yards rushing, and then you get him back, and then he goes back to practice squad. I don't know that he's ready for full-time action on a 53-year man, but I think he's definitely a good piece on practice squad to bring up as needed. I'd rather have Brooks and Pierce over Dare, Jordan, and Taylor. So I had Taylor on practice squad, Brooks and Pierce over Dare. The issue I have with that, Chandler, is Dare has has special teams value, which Pierce doesn't. I thought Pierce was going to be the kickoff return guy. I had major hopes for him. I thought it was going to be perfect for him. That hasn't worked out. So I think the special teams value that Dare carries on his tackling ability is going to outweigh what Pierce has. What's your win total guess? I'm thinking 11. I hate doing these. Every year is so different. This schedule is different. This schedule is hard. Would this team last year that won 10 games, would they win 10 games with this schedule this year? Who knows? This is what I'll say. 9 wins is a disappointment. That's what I would say. Anything 10 wins or more is successful, which more often than not you'll be in the playoffs there. 9 wins and sitting at home in January is a disappointment. Grabbing an ice cider to hit with you, that's weird. For my birthday. Enjoy, Travis. I don't do the ciders, but I appreciate it. Appreciate the support, buddy. I'm falling behind on some comments, so I'm trying to catch up. Do trades tend to pick up prior to cuts? Kind of similar to what we did with Mixon and Skoranek. A trade for 6th or 7th and allows the team to move to have bank on waivers to free to get a guy up here. So what's 5th? Yeah, I mean, the last week after the preseason game prior to 53 man, there's going to be a swath of trades, especially with the teams that are like 18 to 20 and below. So say 20 to 32 on the waiver wire. If they've got their eye on a player that they know is going to be released, they can circumvent the waiver wire and call the team and say, hey, we'll give you a 2026 7th, conditional 7th, conditions on that he plays X amount of snaps or whatever, just to kind of circumvent the waiver wire and get the player. And then if he doesn't play, then you're not out your draft pick or whatever. That's kind of how that will work. But we'll see with the younger crew of general managers that we have now, teams are more willing to trade two-sided. Teams are willing to trade players for cash, which is technically not legal, but they've been able to find their way through that. And then I think teams are more apt to trade a 6th and 7th round pick to avoid waivers to get players, veterans on their roster. And so I think we'll definitely see another flurry of trades across the league. Is there any value in Pierce for a potential trade? I don't think so. And I say this only because, put it this way, take your Texans blinders off. Just be any team, all right? Take away Pierce's name. Look at the stats. Is that a player you're trading for? Really? We saw James Robinson for the Jacksonville had that one good season and just kind of course, he had a bunch of injuries, but to kind of tell off. But, I mean, really try to take off what you think and just be another team, another GM, knowing that you probably have 2 or 3 young players on your team as practice squad that you signed undrafted, that you drafted on day 3. Are you willing to push all those guys down to bring in Dameon Pierce? Maybe somebody has an injury, but if you have a clean roster, think about it this way. Put it this way. Say you're the Texans, and you look at Pierce's stats for this preseason and last year, knowing you have Jawar Jordan and British Brooks and J.J. Taylor, are you trading for Dameon Pierce? Probably not. I'm not. So I don't think he has trade value. I think, like to talk about the waiver wire circumvention with somebody late. If somebody late down in the waiver order really wants Pierce, they can give up a future 7th and get him. But I feel like you really see him move on. Damon, good to see you, buddy. If someone covers the Browns, could I interest you in a swap for Pierce in return for Tony Fields? I'd have to look into Tony Fields, but you have my interest, sir. And this whole color scheme on my comments is not working very well. I didn't think that one through very well. Appreciate the support, Damon. Yeah, well, I'll have to take a look at Tony Fields, but that's something that could definitely work. And Stress talked about it earlier, to do a swap-a-do, and maybe you can do a player for player kind of trade situation, or something like that. I think that's a good example, Damon, because it doesn't look like Chud's going to be ready to go. Who do you think stays on this roster longer, Woods or Mechie? Excluding health, if both of them are just healthy, I think Mechie's here longer. Sloak should hire Kubiak offensive line zone scheme guru to coach the O-line. I'm trying to remember who that was, and now I'm sad and disappointed in myself that I can't remember who that was. Alex Gibbs would be an awesome hire, Tony. I mean, I love Chris Staffnauer, the offensive line coach they have, but it would be fun to bring in Alex Gibbs as a consultant. Talk to the shop today. Sounds like away jerseys and battle reds won't be available for the new player like Mason 100%. Ooh, that's not cool. Yeah, I heard John Harris talk about this on the broadcast, and that's what I was talking about. Maybe you bring. I don't know what his blocking ability is, but if Andrew Beck is not healthy, right? Maybe he's an IR player because you don't want Stover or Skoranek playing fullback. Maybe British Books. I mean, maybe he's better than Troy Hairston. Troy Hairston's good on special teams, as we saw today. He wanted to lift up a player and suplex him, but Troy Hairston's good on. I love that my phone does that. So, I have an iPhone now as my dedicated webcam. I got rid of the G7, so if you do this, it does that. That funny. Or I can just press a button. Say that. All right. I'm a dork about that kind of stuff. I'm concerned about. Why are you concerned about Stroud's deep? He's one of the best deep throwers in the game. He was the best deep thrower last year. Travis, go drink your cider, buddy. Go drink your cider. I'd say 10 wins. That means they improved over last year. Yeah, sure. Do you see Diggs getting an extension by the end of next season? Chemistry is building. I think we all know Dell will be wide receiver 1 if he stays healthy. It's nice to have number 3 number 1. It is nice to have. This is the best wide receiver room that this organization has seen in years. Years. Diggs is here for 1 year and that's it. I will stake it right here. He's not getting re-signed. This is a 1 year. Let him reset his own market. Go sign elsewhere. I'm not even worried about the comp pick because this team's going to be signing players next year. This is just a 1 year rental. Love you, Diggs. Happy to have you here. But no. I don't foresee any situation where Diggs is re-signed. And speaking of which, we are at 1,145 viewers so far. So that's awesome. That's between X and YouTube, obviously. What's the salary cap room after releases you selected roughly and versus current? Let's see, Wes, I almost did that today, and I didn't get a chance to. Had some house chores. I'm mad that I didn't do that for you. So I'll put that on my to-do list this week. Now, let me see if I can find it. I have a graphic from last year that I made that I sent to Omar, the director of PR, and they were fascinated. He gave it to the team. He gave it to Nick, and they were fascinated with it. So I have a chart. I'm trying to find it that shows the cap space run through the year. I'm trying to find it. I'm looking through my data wrapper. Oh, here it is. Golly, why would it be just so small? Hang on. I'll get it up here for you a second. Just give me 1 second here. Go here, and then... Oh, I made it too... I think I made it too small. Oh, wait. Here we go. All right. So let me share my screen. So give me 1 second here. All right. So this is the cap space run from start of the league year. I know it's hard to see the text. You can see free agency spree, free agency slows, draft class assigned here. And then they did the Mason extension where they gained some cap space. And then Tunsil extension where they gained more cap space. And then Howard extension, they gained more cap space. They restructured Questenberry, Angels settlements. Okay, so now look. From the 90 to the 53 man, they went from 15.3 to 3.3. Whew. $12 million lost in the 53 man cut down, which necessitated the Jerry Hughes restructure, the Kamiah Fairmare restructure, and the Stevie Nelson restructure, right? And so I'm not saying it's going to be this big this year, but a lot of folks have asked why the team is sitting on so much cap space. They're sitting on, 18.7, I think, right now. I think that's in part because the last 2 years, this team has faced injury issues at the 53-man cutdown, especially across the offensive line. Last year was horrific across the offensive line. So, which necessitated a lot of IR, bringing players in. So I think Caserio is just building a bigger buffer, a bigger pad this year on salary cap. So, Wes, to answer your question, I don't have that number, and I'm very disappointed in myself that I don't have that number. But I would like to think that it's going to go from 18 down to probably 8.5 or 9, if I had to guess. 12.5, Larry. Yeah, I hear you, buddy. You're not the first person stressed to say Cowboys need a running back. Yeah. You're not the first person to say that, team. And look, Tony's right behind you. I view Pierce as much better. Hey, you do you, buddy. Hey, I'm not going to argue with you. I love Pierce. I think he has a lot of talent. I just question his ability in this scheme. That's a good one, Travis. I like that. Pierce will be another Foreman. Foreman is finding his way. He found his way to Carolina, and now he's playing with Chicago. I think Pierce just needs the right system. If Woods and Diggs are gone next year, who is the wide receiver vet in the locker room? Whew. I don't know. It's probably... I had to go look at the free agency list next year to see who's available or who's going to be coming to free agent next year. Sounds like the wide receiver group in the draft next year is going to be good again. Maybe they draft another one. I assume this is directed toward me, so I will say, my man, back to you. I never want to see Broker on the field again. Yeah, you won't. I said that Broker would be the 9th offensive line guy on the 53-man, but would be inactive every single week. Fisher is easily offensive tackle 3. He can play both sides. So I'm really excited. A lot of people were kind of, what is going on with that pick? Didn't really know why Blake Fisher was selected. And then now it's starting to make some sense. And it really starts to make sense for 2025 if Titus Howard is not on this roster next year. When we have to sign those guys, when the injury bug hits, are those contracts essentially prorated for how many games are left? Just crazy. The cap hits are that high for 2 years for the guys across the street. A lot of interest. That's what I get for choosing those colors. I got to choose white next time. Yeah, it's not prorate. I mean, it just depends on the contract and whatnot. But it's players that you're going to sign week 1, week 2, week 3 are going to be at the vet minimum. It's nothing too crazy there. Anything to keep Stroud upright? Yeah. I'm with you, buddy. I am with you. How many viewers are we at? Let's look before we close this one down. 1203, 1,203. That's good. It's not too bad. I would like to see a little more, but would have liked to see at least my subscribe button works. So Cody Suits will be happy about that. He bought himself a Stream Deck, and he's completely overwhelmed by it. He's overwhelmed by it, and I'm not saying I'm an expert with it. I have a Stream Deck. I've had it for about a year, and I built so the message that you see in the comments, the be sure to subscribe, blah, blah, blah. Be sure to subscribe to capandtrade.football. That's me just pushing a button on my Stream Deck, and it puts that comment there. So Cody will be excited to know that that button works. Why only keep 3 off 9? I would just say that that's the standard that most teams have. Last year was a pretty wild situation with injuries. That's why I had 9 offensive linemen. We had Jarrett Patterson and Kendrick Green as your inside swings, Nick Broker and Blake Fisher as your outside swings, and then we had Dieter Eisland who can play interior on the practice squad, and then we had TBA offensive line on the practice squad. Maybe that's Killian Zaire. Unless they keep his exemption going for pathway player. But you only have 53 spots. I mean, most teams I'm not used to seeing a team carry 10 offensive linemen. So it's just, you just can only carry so many. Am I using OBS? I am not. I use Ecamm Live. I swapped from StreamYard to Ecamm back in January. I have a Mac, so Ecamm is Mac-only software. I wanted something that was software-based and not just within a browser. I wanted to have more control. I can do a lot more with Ecamm. It's the same, almost identical same price as StreamYard and Restream and Riverside FM and all those folks. I tried Streamlabs desktop, which is free, but the color correction with the camera with my iPhone is just weird. It makes me look like I'm on fire, and I've tried all kinds of filters and everything. So I'm still working with Streamlabs desktop, which is basically OBS, and trying to find my way through it. But until I can feel confident with it, Ecamm is the shit. I love it. It's just expensive, but it's awesome. And I love the Stream Deck integration. They have a ton of tools. I have everything on buttons. I don't have to do any mouse clicks or anything like that. I can do everything I need to do from the Stream Deck with here. I've got a separate live program feed over here on the corner of my screen so I can see what y'all see to make sure that everything's right. So it's been fantastic. My biggest issue is if you watched the last show, which was about 2 weeks ago, the whole color scheme and the look was completely different. I have huge mental issue with finding a show frame look that I like. This week, last show it was like it had the lower third with the little shapes and it was orange and weird colors. It was cool. I got a few compliments, but I just didn't like it. And so about a week and a half ago, I started building this whole profile. Hopefully, you got to see the intro. I built this whole profile, and the whole intent with this profile, with the red over here, and you see my name right here in blue. All the colors are the Texans colors. The red, the white, the Texans blue, and the dark blue. Can't remember the new color of it. All these colors are the Texans colors. Even the bulb, like I mentioned earlier, the bulb in the ceiling fan. I bought a nano leaf bulb, and there's two up there, and I set them to the H-Town blue, which is the same color as here. I set them to H-Town blue. So I thought it'd be cool to have a whole setup with the Texans colors. So that's kind of what I did with that. So you think there's any chance Patterson and Blake Fisher can convince Joe Alt to come rejoin them in a few years? No, he's gonna be re-signed long term with the Chargers, man. He's leaving Los Angeles. So, all right, I think that's about it. I was anticipating 45 minutes, and we went an hour and a half. So as usual, I talk too long. 8,000 viewers on game days. Yeah, sure. Yeah, whatever. I don't do this for needing views, so I just love talking to y'all. I love interactions. I love all the comments. I love the questions. That's why I like on X. I try to reply. I have a rule. My rule on X is I try to reply to as many as I can. I can't reply to everybody. And B, I have my notifications set to where it shows up in my notifications or the replies box that for people who are following me. But I'll go in there and I'll look for folks that are not following me, and I'll try to respond to those. But I try to reply to as many as I can. Not always available to reply to as much as I can, but I try to reply to as many as I can. Same thing here. I enjoy chatting with folks. I love just the discussions. As long as it's civil, I'm happy to talk with anybody. If you're going to be an ass, move on. That's all I can say. Your setup is awesome. You're killing from the production standpoint. Yeah, I just need to have more time. But, hey, I appreciate it, Stress. Stress is killing it, man. I mean, talking about somebody who just flew onto the scene and, exploded. I mean, that dude got content left and right. It just blows me away. I just can't seem to do everything that he is able to do. But I am excited for this year. I'm excited for the Next Gen Stats Pro data set that NFL unleashed on Friday. I had access to Next Gen for the last year until I lost it about 2 months ago. So I'm excited to see what folks are able to produce with that. I probably should just do a video on that whole program, but it's really cool. If you're able to pay for the NFL Plus Premium, not just the NFL Plus, but the NFL Plus Premium package, you'll get obviously the all 22, but you'll get the data package as well, and it's 9.8 out of 10. I'm just super ecstatic for it. I'm super excited to see what fans can come up with from that data. And the really cool part is, let's just look at it real quick. It's pretty cool. I think I have it right here. Yeah. So this is pretty cool. So if you go to stats, right, we're going to say that I want to look at, there's different ways to do it. I want to look at all the touchdown runs in 2023, right? So we'll go to, so I want to look at all the touchdown runs for Devin Singletary. So if you just click on this 4, it auto filters the plays for you. Isn't that cool? I mean, I've had access to this. I know how it works, but I'm excited for fans to be able to have similar access to what we're used to seeing. You know, I pay for black market all 22, so I'm able to get 2 end zones plus the sideline view, so I get 3 angles, and it's the black market is crazy for all 22. But the fact that you're able to go in here and just say that I want to look at the four touchdown runs of Singletary, and it's going to pull them up right for you right away. It's super cool. And so I encourage you, if you're able to pay for it, which not everybody is, and I truly understand that, go try to get this package. It is super awesome. It will really help you become more immersed in the game. It'll help you learn about the game. Like here, so just their player controls suck. That's the only bad part about it. So, but you see how, and what we can do here is we can go slow it down. You can slow it down to 5 speed, but so we got I formation, 3 tight ends on the field. I mean, they parted the Red Sea, so that's a pretty easy run. But that's duo, straight up. You'll see Dieter and Scruggs duo here. You'll see Mason and Fant duo here. You'll see Brevin, the 2 tight ends. So this is just duo and 13 personnel. But I mean, the fact that you're able to have access to this kind of stuff now is just fantastic. And I think it's really going to benefit the fans. I mean, you can do all kinds of filters. I mean, you can look at plays that are on motion and inside tackles, outside tackles. You can look at formation-based stuff. You can look at all the passing plays where the defense is a dime, nickel, I mean, it's just, you can do a lot with it. Trust me. But anytime that you're able to do this, you can go look at all. You can go look at all of Tua's 603 dropbacks or the 29 plays that he was sacked on, and they still have a little ways to go with this program. There's still some points that, and I submitted feedback because I used this system for a couple of years and I know what it's capable of. But man, you can do a lot with this. So EPA per drop back. You can see CJ's 7th. They want to go look at passing splits. I want to see under pressure. See CJ's 8th under pressure. Or no, that was okay. Here we go. So now you see CJ did not do so well on EPA per drop back. Let's see. He's 21st. So I mean, just things like that. I mean, you see all the stats and stuff that I pull up, and I post a lot of scatter plots and charts and stuff with that. And I just think it's, if you're able to get it. It's worth it. I'm expecting to see the timeline flooded with all 22 clips, and I'm super excited because there's folks in the media out there that will throw shade and be like, players laugh at you for throwing all 22 up. Who cares? Do you, man. Have fun. It's your social media account. Have fun with it. So that part, I'm excited to see, because I think there's a lot of folks out there that have the knowledge, that have the ability to put some good information out there, some good content out there. I'm not talking about the folks that just say, oh, look at this play by C.J. Stroud where he throws it to Stephon Diggs down the sideline. No, I'm looking for content, breakdown, details, scheme, technique, footwork, everything, all the details. If you're that guy, man, hit me up. So I'm definitely excited to see that. Coach Gates is trying to do their jobs now. Yeah. They got at least, they're not worried about us. They're not worried about us at all. But I am excited to see what fans come up with. So with that, I think that's about everything I wanted to cover. We are at an hour and 42 minutes on what I expected to be 45 minutes. So make sure to drop a like. It helps out the show. Subscribe if you can. The part that I really want you to be aware of is right here. capandtrade.football. Okay? That's the newsletter. It's free. There's a paid subscription, as stressed notes here that your setup is awesome. The subs help pay for me being able to pay for NFL Premium and Sports Info Solutions and PFF and fantasy points. StatHead, I think, is another one. So I think I got like 5 subs that I pay for. In addition to Ecamm Live, this whole production, I pay for that. So your subscriptions, if you're able to do a paid subscription, just helps me make a better show for y'all. It helps me make a better newsletter for y'all. It helps me have access to more data that I can turn around and give you more information. So, but no hard feelings. If you want to do the free sub, by all means, man. I love it. So make sure, subscribe there, capandtrade.football. It is free. There's a paid subscription, like I said, but if you just want to do free, good on you. Okay? No problems. So make sure you subscribe to that. So there's a ton of content out there. I appreciate everybody coming through. A lot of good viewers tonight. A lot of good questions. We'll just have to wait and see, man. We got one more preseason game. This week's going to be fun. Joint practices on Thursday. I have to go back and look at the email. Joint practices on Thursday with the Los Angeles Rams. I'm excited to see some Sarah Barshop, who used to cover the Texans, should hopefully be in town. The Rams have a lot of good beat writers, but joint practice is always fun. It's crowded in the meet area, but it's a whole lot of fun. So, hopefully we'll get a piece of that. And then Los Angeles Rams game this weekend, and then next Tuesday is the cut down to 53 players, followed by Wednesday at 11 a.m. locally, 12 Eastern, will be practice squad signings. And then we'll see the roster juggling that we talked about earlier with players for 53, with IR designations and things like that. So I'll have it all for you. Follow me on X right there at Texas Cap. But we'll have it all broken down right here on the newsletter. So I appreciate you. Everybody have a wonderful night. And with that, we will shut it down. Peace.